most people never experience the sports car drive, how to really drive a car. And you have to know how to drive this car. My name is Susan Morgan, and I'm originally from Michigan, but I've been in California approximately 30 years. And I drive a Morgan Plus 4. When I'm driving this car, it's like me, the machine, and God. I don't think about anything but driving. And the beautiful scenery that's around me, being out in the open like this. It's the best zen in the world. It just relaxes me. Even if I'm driving the car hard, I'm totally relaxed. And it's such a joy to drive this car. If you haven't driven anything like this, it's hard to understand. When I was 18 years old, my boyfriend had a TR4. I wanted a British car. He found a Morgan 4.4 in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. We went and looked at it, I test drove it, and fell in love with the car. However, I did not have enough money to buy the car cash. So I needed my mom to co-sign a loan. She refused to co-sign a loan for that car because it wasn't practical, especially in the snow. But I went ahead and bought a Triumph, 1961 Triumph TR3 for cash, and drove it in the snow and the rain and everything else in Michigan. That was my only car. I did not have another driver. That was it. I was 18. Years later, as I got older, I thought about buying another TR3. I Googled it, searched for one, could not find one that was suitable. I didn't want a basket case. I wanted something that was already done. So for the hell of it, I Googled Morgan. This car came up. It was a beautiful car. So I sent somebody to look at the car, supposedly a SCCA judge. He looked at the car. He gave me the report that the car was probably a 96-point car. So I went ahead and purchased it. Had it shipped from Orlando to my front door, and ended up the car had problems because it had sat for between 1985, its restoration, and 2012 when I bought the car. They put only 6,000 miles on it, which is not good. I reupholstered it. The tonneaus, I've been replating certain things, but basically the car was restored in 1985. It's a 1985 paint job, and again, it was a ground-up restoration, so the wood chassis is in excellent condition. They're all handmade wood chassis cars. They're made in Melvin, England, by the Morgan Company, which is still a family-owned company. The Morgan family is still building wood chassis cars today. That's all they do. They're coach makers. The drivetrains come from various sources. The Plus 4 was a Triumph powered then. Started with the Vanguard, then the TR2, TR3, TR4, and TR4A, which is the last four-cylinder Triumph engine made. I wasn't a tomboy when I grew up. No, not at all. Just like cars. Hung out with people that had, guys that had cars all the time. Still hanging out with guys that have cars. You know, like to watch them work on the cars. Had several Corvettes that needed to be worked on. I had a friend that worked on them. This was in Michigan. And we'd go over and watch them work on the car. And I just enjoyed that. It was fun. And and I'm still doing that today. So it's just fun to me. Most women would be bored to tears. You know, I go to car shows, I go to cars and coffee events, and I show the car. And when I go to these events, it's amazing. 90% of the time, the wives out there.
It's a cool Morgan. I've never seen one like it.
Yeah, it's pretty original.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much all original.
Yeah.
I did not work on my own cars until I got the Morgan. I understand what needs to be done. I watch what has to be done. I have adjusted the valves in the car. I have adjusted the carburetors in the car myself. And now that stuff's fun. I would rather than actually wrench on it. I don't mind fine tuning it, but I'd rather have somebody wrench on it, and then I'll fine tune it, and then I'll take it out and test drive it and get it to where it should be. There's no computer chips. There's no equipment that you can really put on the car. You just have to drive it and get it to where you want it to be. Same thing, the carburetors. motors you could tack them a little farther if you wanted to. I have no desire to do that. So with no overdrive, I'm in high RPMs in fourth gear, higher than I would be in fifth gear, so the car just screams at 4,500 RPM. It loves it though. This car is powered by a Triumph TR4A engine, which is an extremely torquey motor. I'm probably about 115 horsepower on the rear wheel in a stock motor. The car only weighs 1,800 pounds, so it's plenty of horsepower for this car. It's I cruise. Well, I shouldn't say this, but I cruise generally at about 80 or 85 miles an hour in the freeway, and I can accelerate to 100 in an instant with the car. You can really enjoy the scenery because you're almost part of it. You're out there with it. Instead of a cage, looking through glass, looking through a window. That's why I like the motorcycle. You're not looking through glass. Let's see, I had the TR3, and then I started hanging out with these guys that had Corvettes. I bought one off of one of the guys. It was a 64 small block convertible. I ended up wrecking that one. Then bought another one that was a small block, but it was pumped. I'd go to Kmart parking lot in the wintertime with that car, and when the parking lot was empty and the snow was on the ground, and do donuts. And donuts. And that was so much fun. You know, I can't imagine any other woman that would do that, but I have no fear. And so with no fear, you do things, crazy things like that. And it was a lot, but I have to tell you, it was a lot of fun. I don't regret it. Never hurt myself, so that's good. These cars handle extremely well in the turns because of the wood chassis. The wood chassis flexes into the turns. That's one reason. They're actually a little bit too narrow for their length. In theory, that's why parking them is difficult. They have no turning radius when you're trying to park the car. However, when you're on the track at speeds or on roads at speeds, the car handles extremely well, and it will flex in the turn. It flexes enough where it'll chew the paint right off of itself. Okay, it does. Stock. This car is stock because I show it, but when you pump them, especially super sports, they're amazingly fast, but they're very agile on the turns, and that's the key. Is that someone with more top end might catch up to them in the straightaway, but it's bye-bye in the turns. So watching these cars race is amazing. I would like to race. I've only had the car on the track one time, and it was a blast. Okay. But I don't think I would race this car because it would pretty much trash the car. And I bought the car to drive for fun. But I certainly did enjoy the speed on the racetrack. It screamed. I'm at 4,500 RPM on the backstretch, which is about 85 miles an hour. I'd get close to 90 miles an hour in the backstretch, and then, of course, we'd be coming into a turn, and then, you know, back off and downshift, and the car would just go ba 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 into the turns.
Tell me about these badges.
I mostly club badges. This is the Morgan +4 Club, Southern California. Morgan Sports Car Club, International. This is the Morgan Sports Car Club of Northern California. This is the Morgan Historic Society. And this is Flogmog, which is kind of a special badge that you can't purchase, you have to earn. I have a lot of anniversary badges. But I don't usually put the anniversary badges on the car. I just keep those. People collect these. The woman in the car thing, people are much more receptive to it. Again, you get a few that are just, you know, old school, and they're never going to accept the fact that you have any knowledge about a car. But that's not that often. Most people, once I start talking, most men know I know my stuff. this is probably the most interesting car I've ever owned, to be honest with you. And it's a car I wanted since I was 18 years old. I just forgot about it for years and went into, because all the other cars I bought over the years were drivers. So Corvettes were drivers, the Porsches were drivers. This is not a driver. It's not a car you can go to Costco with. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be a wise thing to do. First of all, you're not going to be able to fit much of your Costco purchases in it. And second, you know, this is a car, if it gets hit in a parking lot or something, it's not so easy to find somebody to do body work because it's all wood chassis. And getting a part from the factory doesn't mean it's going to fit because they're all handmade. One part might fit one Morgan and not another. If the car gets hit, it's a problem. It's probably, it could be years of not having the car. You know, I've heard stories of 15 years, okay, of these cars being down. So that's a scary thing. So that's the only reason I wouldn't. I drive the car for fun, but I don't drive it as a driver because I don't want the car to get hit in the parking lot. If I get stressed or stressed out, I come out to the garage and turn on music and detail the car, hand detail it, and that's just a labor of love. I've had it out front here, and people have driven by and said, that's a labor of love, isn't it? And I said, yes, it is. Certain levels of detailing I do depending on where I'm at with the car. Like if I'm going to a Concours, I'll do the wheels and I'll pull the seats out and I'll do the engine compartment. But for every day, I just basically detail the interior and the exterior of the car, wipe it, and, you know, do a nice detail, a couple hours. It's kind of like driving the car too. When you're driving the car, it's just you and the machine, and it just, if you're stressed, everything just leaves your mind. And you're just driving that car, especially down fun roads. And this is a car that you drive down fun roads. It's been down the coast, Pacific coast, and there's nothing like that, driving this open car down fun roads. Windy roads, it loves windy roads. The car handles like a dream, except when you're trying to park it. but other than that, it handles like a dream. And so that's my stress relievers. This car has changed my whole life in that respect.